Have you ever met someone who sounded completely certain, but the moment you listened closely, nothing they said really made sense? What if that kind of confidence is not intelligence at all, but the opposite? And what if psychology can reveal the everyday habits that quietly expose an extremely low IQ long before most people notice? Low intelligence is not just about test scores or grades. It often shows up through thinking patterns, emotional habits, and daily behavior. The first sign is overconfidence without understanding. Psychology knows this as the Dunning-Kruger effect. People with low ability often overestimate how much they actually know. They speak with certainty because they lack the insight to recognize their own limitations. The less they understand, the more confident they sound. And the moment you ask a deeper question, their logic starts collapsing. The second sign is no curiosity or desire to learn. One of the clearest signs of intelligence is curiosity. Smart people want to understand how things work. But low IQ behavior often avoids learning because new information feels threatening to the ego. Instead of asking why, they stay with what is familiar, even when it keeps them limited. The third sign is black and white thinking. Psychology calls this cognitive rigidity. It is the inability to handle complexity, nuance, or multiple valid perspectives. To them, something is either fully right or fully wrong. There is no gray area, no middle ground, no flexibility. The fourth sign is poor emotional control. Low intelligence often travels with low emotional intelligence. That means weak impulse control, low frustration tolerance, and reactive behavior. They get offended quickly, lose control easily, and react before they think. Smart people usually pause and process. Low IQ behavior reacts immediately. The fifth sign is blaming others constantly. Psychology links this to an external locus of control, the belief that life happens because of luck, other people, or unfair circumstances, never because of your own choices. Instead of solving problems, they explain problems away. Responsibility requires reflection, and reflection takes cognitive effort. The sixth sign is an inability to handle opposing opinions. Low IQ behavior often confuses disagreement with disrespect. Reasoned debate takes effort, flexibility, and mental discipline. So instead of debating, they personalize the conflict. They do not examine the argument, they defend the ego. So what do all 6 signs have in common? They all reveal weak thinking patterns, not just weak knowledge. Low intelligence often shows up through rigid thinking, low self-awareness, emotional impulsiveness, and resistance to learning. And the hardest part is that people with low intelligence often cannot clearly see these flaws in themselves. That's exactly why the pattern can continue for years without change. The lower the insight, the lower the chance of self-correction. But psychology also makes something important clear. Behavior can change when awareness begins. The moment someone starts questioning their own certainty, their own emotional reactions, and their own blame patterns, growth becomes possible. Curiosity is stronger than ego. Flexibility is stronger than certainty. Self-awareness is stronger than denial. Real intelligence grows when a person becomes willing to learn, pause, reflect, and change. That's why emotional control matters. It protects thinking from being hijacked by impulse. And that's why responsibility matters. It turns frustration into problem solving. And that's why open-mindedness matters. It keeps the ego from becoming a prison. So these 6 signs don't just reveal low IQ. They reveal what happens when the mind stops growing. That's why this topic matters, not to mock people, but to understand the habits that quietly destroy judgment. Because once you can recognize those patterns, you can also avoid becoming trapped by them. And that's where real growth begins, not with pretending to be smart, but with learning how to think better. So if you see these signs in yourself or others, pay attention. Overconfidence, low curiosity, rigid thinking, emotional impulsive, you become harder to manipulate, harder to impress with fake confidence, and much better at reading people. That's the real power of psychology. It helps you see the patterns behind behavior instead of getting distracted by appearances. And there are many more hidden patterns behind intelligence, low self-awareness, and human behavior that most people completely miss. So if this made you think differently about the people around you, then it already did something important. Keep exploring psychology because the smallest daily habits often reveal the biggest truths about the mind. If you enjoyed this, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who loves understanding human behavior, because the next psychology video might explain something they've never noticed before.